Alright people, Tuesday the 5th, I'm going to go through today's session, okay, dealt with Delta and price action mainly, okay. We're going to start with Delta first, and then on future videos I'll start doing TPO, TPO and Delta combined. So during the Asia session at 6:45, we had Delta printing, right here, 6:45, bullish candle, negative Delta, okay. Yeah, so bias and control at this level, bias and control. Yeah, that was the first sort of sign. Yeah, and you can sort of see, yeah, that if London never printed Delta, it did, that you still could have used Asia's Delta to enter your long positions. You know, you could have, so always do that. If let's say New York doesn't print any Delta, you can always use London's one or even Asia's one. Yeah, but a session at some point will always print some sort of Delta. So yeah, that's one. 6:45, bias and control, bullish candle, bearish Delta. London session, 10:30. We have 10:30 right here. Same thing, bullish candle, bearish Delta, negative Delta on an upside candle. Okay. Again, telling us bias is still in control. Okay. Two things you could have seen here. Okay. So you mark the breach with the rectangle tool, and you wait for a revisit. Yeah, a revisit, I mean price, let's say moving a bit to the upside, let's say like that, and then coming back down for you to enter, and then moving to the upside again. Yeah, something like that, revisit. Because what we can see here, yeah, so we got breach 10:30, and then we got upside candle, fine, and then we got a sort of a candle to the downside. A lot of people would have taken that as a revisit, okay, which is completely fine. Okay, but at the same time, it's not sort of a revisit because it never left the area. Okay, it never left Delta, so it stayed within the rectangle. So yes, it would have been fine to enter your longs. Yeah, you just would have had to give it enough margin for the trade to breathe, otherwise you would have got stopped out. Okay, and the ratio is a bit off as well, because yeah, you got what, 340 pips, yeah, around it, and the ratio, and then you would have risked 117 pips. Okay, that's completely fine. Yeah, but this is a bit of a random stop loss. Yeah, place it at a level where you can see where it's enough risk, not too much risk, and it makes sense based on past behaviors. Like in this case, dragging it down to this candle, below this candle, would have made more sense. Okay, but that's a lot of risk already. That's 173 pips to 340 pips target. Yeah, the ratio is starting to look off. Okay, so that's one. Yeah, if it risks your if it fits your risk appetite, then that's completely up to you. All right, but the best option that to take in this case, like I said, look, you can always use Delta from Asia. Okay, it revisited this area right here, and then with the upside. Yeah, so it's completely fine to use the Asia Delta as well. But the best thing, if you don't want to use Asia's Delta and you just want to focus on London's Delta, which is absolutely fine, this revisit would have been the perfect entry. Okay, the bottom of this candle, enter your longs right there, targeting this. Okay, or plan your exits, because now the ratio is looking better. Okay, because now you just have to wait for price to revisit. So now it leaves Delta area, and then it revisits to the downside right here. So this is what you call the revisit. Okay, and then enter as close as possible to the bottom. Okay, and now you will know that you have to place your stop loss just below Delta area. Okay, because now that's what the breach does. That's what Delta does for us. Yeah, a lot of people stress a lot about where would you place your stop loss. Well, this fixes 90% of that stress. Okay, because now you know that all you gotta do is just wait for a reverse of that breach. Yeah, place your stop loss just below. And now look at the ratios: 54 pips to 310 pips. Yeah, now the ratio is looking amazing. Okay. So now if you get stopped out, let's say you would be losing 54 pips. In the first trade, you would have lost, if you get stopped out, more than 100 pips. Okay, which is still fine, yeah, but it's not better than losing 51 pips. Yeah, so now ratio is looking better. So yeah, sometimes you gotta stay patient for the right move to happen. Yeah, because like I said, you don't want to use Delta area, Delta from Asia. It's completely fine. Then stay patient and wait for a proper revisit of this Delta area. Okay, London session. It's just literally a matter of patience. So then 215 New York. Now we're looking to the downside. Buy side is fading. Okay, they're starting to lose control at 215. Right here, so we got a downside candle with strong, very strong positive delta. Okay, now sellers are in control. Sellers are taking over. All right, so we marked that at 215. Yes, I see that London High got taken out. Okay, but you can't just focus on what gets taken out all the time, or what protected levels are, what strong levels are, what are the weak levels. You also need to focus on the facts, and the fact at that moment at 215 is that sellers are taking over. Okay. You would also be able to see that in TPO, but in this video we're just gonna focus on Delta. Okay. We've got a couple imbalances left behind. Got one here. We got a couple imbalances left behind that had to be revisited as well. And then there was an overexpansion from Asia to London. Yeah, so we got 673 pips of expansion from between Asia and London. Okay, so buy side started fading, sellers started taking control. We marked that 215, and then same thing here. We wait for a revisit. Okay, so we got breach at 215, push to the downside. Okay, we got push to the downside right here. Cool. This would have been easier than this first entry right here, right? Because let's say you decide to take this first candle after the breach as a revisit. Yeah, you still have to place your stop loss and give it enough margin, yeah, but above the breach. Okay, so if you gave it enough margin, so you wouldn't have gotten stopped out. Okay, if you want to take that first candle as a revisit. Okay, but it is completely fine, yeah, but like I said, yeah, you should let price leave. Okay, you should let price leave the area, delta area, and then wait for a proper revisit. Okay, so for example, let's say, cool, first entry could have been, yeah, possibly, and it's not bad. 68 pips risks, 342 pips target. That ratio is looking good, absolutely fine. Okay, but let's say for example there's a big upside candle right here. This did leave the delta area, so this push to the downside. Yeah, so this is what the wick shows us. This went to the downside, yeah, ended up all the way up here. Yeah, this could have been the entry you could have taken. Yeah, because this properly left delta area. Yeah, it came back and revisited within the same candle. Yeah, but that can happen a lot. I mean, anything can happen in trade. So taking that from the top of the candle of the candle and giving it enough margin, maybe at most you can do London low there. I mean London high while we're spending right there. Let's say that's the max you should be putting your stop loss at this point. Okay, so let's say just above London high or this London session pending. That's 79 pips to 380 pips target. So ratio, once again, is looking good. Both entries would have been good. Yeah. Now, the only difference is that this entry is more clear than this one, because this did leave the delta area and then come back and then came back. This one didn't fully leave. Okay, this stayed within the area. So what I'm trying to say, both entries good ratios. Just one of them was a bit more unclear than the other, but either one would have been a very good entry. Okay. On the other hand, with this London one, this first entry would have been more tricky, yeah, and the second one was more clear. You just had to stay more patient, yeah. And make sure to not let the fear of missing out on that trade affect you, because then you might start seeing this upside candle, upside candle, upside candle, rejection to the downside, rejection to the downside. Well, this is the entry point, but these three candles, if you start to see that, some people, what they just tend to do is, let's say on this candle right here, yeah, they don't want to miss out on any of that. Don't be a fool and get played around just like that and get stopped out by the actual revisit. You know, believe it or not, there's actually a lot of people that would have just entered way too late, yeah, and what stops them out is their revisit when they should have entered. Okay, and just stay patient with it. But yeah, this is the 3 breaches that we identified today, the different scenarios, yeah, what a proper revisit is and what it's not, yeah, and then compare the ratios. Okay, not compare the ratios, but because when you're thinking about, when you're looking at price action in the moment, you wouldn't exactly know, but make sure that the ratio of the trade you're thinking of taking makes sense. Okay, if it's 1 to 2, absolutely fine, but 1 to 3 is better. Just make sure that whatever risks you take, it fits your appetite. Yeah, that's